doing stuff for you. And it just, you know, now
Oh, yeah? Did it go smooth?
Yeah.
She's,
Really glad I could close it a little tighter now. Just because of this.
she's.
the one I always use.
Well,
Like,
but the
oil,
floor went up.
tight stack, and I used to put staple, it was a good staple back then, you know, staple and everything. I thought it was pretty well. But now they're not staples.
It's not bad. Look up and I don't get any much of the steps.
Yeah.
It's turned out.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Slap. You said, just too much. She said, okay. She said, slap me back. I will.
Repeat it. Good.
I should have some on this. Yeah, close. They sweat it up here, and they sweat in the shoes. One good one on the floor is good.
Is there a reason why we changed the font?
Mixing it up.
Appreciated it, but it was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
You just hand it around.
He's down with Susie. Oh, is he? If it goes to Susie's, it's still Leo. If Bruce is there, it's not. But I'm going home with
She's through.
She'll be here.
She finished. She got
Joyce. Joyce. Next
You doing hiding back there? What are you doing hiding back there? Oh. 20 seconds.
Does anybody need a pen?
20 seconds.
Get extras? Could we get it done?
Okay, I will call this meeting to order at 7:01. Roll call, please.
Mary Beth Stivers,
Present.
Chris Taylor,
Present.
Mary Alice Lasswell,
Present.
Don Jackson,
Here,
Janice Murphy,
Present.
Cheryl Steen.
Here.
And myself. And I get Jim Strosty, who's an IT person that is there, so.
Item 3, adoption of minutes. You have minutes in your packet for a regular meeting, Monday, August 11th, 2025, and special meeting, Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Are there any addition or corrections? Hearing none, do I hear a motion for the adoption of the minutes for August 11th, 2025, and August 20th, 2025?
I'll make a motion for the minutes for August 11th, 2025, and then August 20th.
Motion by Chris Taylor, do we have a second?
Second motion?
Seconded by Mary Beth Stivers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Hearing none, those will be filed. Item 4, police report.
For the police report, for August, there was a total of 66 incidences. And they assisted other agencies 5 times, 1 alarm, 1 crash, 1 domestic disturbance. Driving issues were 13, ATV complaints 7, medical 2, mental health and welfare 2, property crimes 2, suspicious unwanted person 1. There was 4 business checks. We had 6 police-oriented policing, 6. Extra patrols 13, traffic stops 11, and they had a good turnout for the National Night Out is what he's wanting to bring up.
Thank you.
Could you guys speak a lot louder? Please.
Item 5, public works report. You had a copy of the report in your packet. Are there any questions for Roger?
Did they have a lot of branches down the storm went through a couple weeks ago?
They had some branches down, yes. They did a few, but not as bad as what they had out in township. And then the other thing I bring up is they've got scheduled right now valve turning and hydrant flushing from October 13th to the 17th. They had a caustic soda line at 12.4 that they had to fix. They also checked iron and magnesium levels from 12.3 and 4, and they started a price comparison on chemical pumps to be upgraded because our pumps are getting older there. As far as they lowered the chemical usage at the Wade sewer plant, which we now have to treat for phosphorus now because we're meeting our limits, which is a good thing. Should be less costly if we pay between $8 and $9 a gallon for the stuff we use for that. And then more than everybody thinks milk's expensive, that stuff's like gold. And then we sent samples in required right now for PFAS testing, which are the forever chemicals you hear about in the news that we had to send out. Those only 1 lab in Wisconsin is doing that right now. So we can send that to Northern Lights, which is an added cost. The other thing right now, they did some weed control throughout the towns and they sprayed for mosquitoes. And then they also had to do some few repairs because when we did the detour, there's some gravel areas where the trucks took corners sharper and added some gravel. So that's pretty much everything that went on with Public Works. Jack was unable to come tonight because that's other appointments. So.
Thank you. library report. We had our joint meeting between the village board and the library board tonight. And on the board are some of the projects that were identified by the village board and the library board for the library. President's business, everybody has a copy of the open meetings law, the compliance guide. Please make sure to make yourself familiar with those things and to keep that handy. That's all the business I have. Committee reports. Finance committee will be starting to meet soon.
Looked at a couple of dates right now and looked at finance, what their schedules look like. I was looking at September 24th as the first one, then every Wednesday after that, October 1st, 8th, and be done by the 15th is what I'm looking at, so. Depending on if that works in your schedule, I can get with individual finance committee members and discuss that.
Works for me.
Works for you.
After 5 o'clock.
After 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
So I do a 6 o'clock or like, okay.
Unless you wanted to do it earlier in the day, like in the morning before.
It does look better.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Parks committee, they will be setting up a meeting soon.
That, they were looking at, the 17th of September, we looked at, it was a Wednesday night. And that's something we're do jointly with, the whole board, committee of the whole, because, there's some things in there that involve some money, and we want to have some good discussion there. And then there's an outside group that's looking at helping out on that too, so that's mostly about Veterans Park.
Do we have to put time on that?
I think we threw out, a time of, I think it was 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, and we'd have that up at the library in case we want to walk down to the Veterans Park area that we're looking at.
That's all I think we have for committee reports. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That's all that we have for committee reports. Treasurer's report, you have a copy of the treasurer's report in your packet. Are there any questions for Cheryl or Roger? Hearing none, we need a motion to approve the treasurer's report for August 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the treasurer's report for August 2025 made by Don Jackson. Do we have a second? I can second. Seconded by Janice Murphy. The motion is to approve the treasurer's report for August 2025. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that will be filed. In your package, you have the vouchers for August of 2025. Any questions for Roger or Cheryl on the vouchers? No, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the vouchers for August of 2025.
Make a motion, we approve the August 2025 vouchers as presented.
We have a motion by Mayor Beth Stivers to approve the vouchers for August of 2025. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris Saylor. The motion is to approve the vouchers for August of 2025. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, those will be filed. Item 11, information technology presentation by James DeRosa.
Roger asked me to come tonight to give an IT activity summary for 2025. The reporting period that we're reviewing is from April 2024 through August of 2025. We're basing this on the 2023 gap analysis and review that Roger and I did back in 2023. At that time, the village's IT systems, after more than a decade of cost-saving measures with limited upgrades, we identified several gaps and launched a multi-year IT modernization effort. The 2024-2025 year was focusing on modernization, replacing outdated hardware, addressing the Windows 10 sunset caused by Microsoft, migrating a server that had been in service for over a decade, creating firewalls, improving connectivity, moving us from DSL to fiber, improvements to Wi-Fi, and FirstNet, which is the primary cellular provider for the village, the fire department, and police departments. 2026 is planned to build on this foundation with the cyber resilience and cyber recovery enhancements, ensuring that the village can withstand and quickly recover from a cybersecurity incident, while continuing to minimize long-term costs and ongoing subscription costs. During 2024, we continued ongoing monthly services, including antivirus, spam, and quarterly maintenance, decommissioned or started the decommissioning process of older servers, installed a new server, the file migrations, workstation remirroring, and backup migrations, firewall upgrades, and deployed power over Ethernet switches. We started the migration from Windows 10 desktop PCs over to Windows 11. Public safety building server decommissioning was started. TDS fiber coordination, new Wi-Fi bridge deployments, and cell spot planning. Cell spots are specifically microcellular towers that we've been deploying throughout the village at the library, public safety building, the village hall, waste treatment plant. These are dealing with dead spots so that when village personnel are in those areas, their cell phones are no longer not working. Additionally, recently there was a fiber optic cut a few years ago that knocked out all communication for the village and all the residents. This affected 911 communications for both cellular providers and everybody else's availability. After initiating an emergency plan that the fire department and the village had, we were able to get FirstNet to deploy cellular assets, specifically a mobile truck that linked up cellular connectivity to a satellite and brought back 911 services. That was maintained until fiber optic connectivity was restored. With that gap being identified by the fire department's IT volunteer staff, went ahead, procured funding, and went ahead and got a Starlink terminal that the fire department has available. We've been modernizing the entire network to allow that the village and the fire department will be able to use this communication terminal in an emergency to restore 911 services for the village buildings. So we'll be able to restore services specifically to this facility, the fire department's systems, and then Old Mill Park, so the police can deploy from that location and still be able to make contact with the outside world if it happens again. So this is one of the many upgrades that have been going on in the background. This was all done in the last year. Moving into 2025, again, maintaining monthly support, antivirus and spam, quarterly server maintenance. We overhauled and installed new UPSs. The previous UPSs were 12 years old. The batteries had melted together, and it took, a day and a half to rip the old batteries out because the plastic had become congealed together. New systems are in, and it took us from a backup time of approximately 5 minutes. Now we're currently able to keep UPSs running for about 40 minutes. Which in the event of a power outage in the village gives Roger or Steve Besmick the time to get up to the village hall, start the old standby generator. The standby generator that's currently in place does not have automatic transfer switches, and it's a completely mandatory manual process. So we have specific circuits identified, and it requires somebody to physically show up and manually go through the entire premise and initiate a switchover. That's why we need the extended runtime to allow for human intervention. Most facilities and government buildings have moved to automated transfer switches and have generators that are able to do this automatically. The village's remote systems have these capabilities, and we have this at the public safety building, but we do not have it at this facility. Beyond that, we migrated off the old servers to new DHCP, which is the IP addressing system for the village. Updated building wiring, migrated the phone system to fiber off of old T1s, centralized services from being between multiple closets, installing Wi-Fi extenders to the park, upgraded the police department's desktop, moving them off of an antiquated system, extended Wi-Fi coverage at the waste treatment plant, installed fiber optics at the Village Hall, the Public Safety Building, the waste treatment plant, migrated to voice over IP, sunsetting the old analog phone line systems, and decommissioned the T1 line that was feeding the old phone systems. Remaining activities that are planned for the 2025 year are the completion of the FirstNet cell spots at the waste treatment plant and the park, restore the police department's backups to the village server, complete the replacement of the DMZ firewalls for the Village Hall and Public Safety Building, reinstate the VPN connectivity between the Public Safety Building and the Village Hall, simplifying and updating the village website, rebuilding the Wi-Fi networks at the Village Hall and Public Safety Building after the conversion from DSL to fiber optics, continuing monthly and quarterly maintenance, completing the updated annual .gov domain verification and federal requirements, conducting quarterly DNS updates and semi-annual domain audits, SSL certificate upgrades, decommissioning the final servers, upgrading the waste treatment plant's final Windows 10 PC, and then scheduled around November is a donation for an additional server at the Public Safety Building to be allowing for future DR initiatives to allow the village's server here to be backed up at the Public Safety Building. So if we have an event here that were to take out this facility, we'd be able to maintain minimal services at the Public Safety Building. For 2026, we have upgrading server OS licenses and functions to Windows Server 2025, both at the village's primary and secondary locations. Continuing Windows 11 updates for Microsoft as a new version is scheduled to be released. Set up the disaster recovery mirroring between the primary and secondary locations, and expanding cyber resiliency and recovery build-outs. That last one is specifically targeting to make sure that we're able to deal with a cyber event. Specifically, most people call it ransomware. In today's time, it isn't, if you're going to get hit, it's when you'll get hit. The current high-level plan, and we'll go into many details during this meeting, but is try to make sure we have a daily snapshot of the IT infrastructure and space, so that when we do get hit, we can roll back to 365 days of images. So we just have to identify where it is and then move forward. Roger and I are still working on the details of the exact full layout of that plan. So again, key takeaways for 2024, we're focusing on modernization and planning, upgrading of servers, firewalls, fiber links, and migrating essential data. 2025 up to date, emphasizing on reliability, security, power, backups, SSL, DHCP, Wi-Fi expansion, and server decommissioning. And then in 2026, we have planned prioritizing connectivity enhancements for FirstNet, fiber, Wi-Fi, stronger security, firewalls, VPNs, and backups, and public service improvements as designed for the website, and improving cyber resiliency measures. Any questions from the board?
How many physical servers are you running?
Today, we are down to 2. The previous system had 7. We were limited by old 72 gig hard drives, so we kept expanding servers to deal with the old SCSI drives at that time and era from over a decade ago. The new servers are obviously a lot smaller, and again, we're using SaaS-based technology, so again, newer platforms, newer technology. So what we could do on 7 servers, we can do on 2.
Else? Any other questions?
I was gonna say.
Anybody has questions, there's the guy.
Thanks for all your hard work with this, Jim.
We're happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Item 12, lead and copper improvements presentation by Emily Gary.
Emily had worked with our lead and copper clients and also worked with the consultant on it. And right now, this is something that moved back when there was that issue in Michigan when they ended up having all those people who were poisoned with lead. So basically, they reversed the flow of water and connected to a pipe that ended up getting a bunch of people sick. So the EPA at the federal level said something had to be done. They came up with some guidelines and they took it to all the states. And Wisconsin DNR came and did their own version, which is a little bit different than what EPA is, but it's stricter, and just like a couple other states. So she is probably the most familiar. She's worked on the notices. She also worked with the consultant. And right now we do have it posted on our website, did individual homes, and now we'll turn it all over to her. She's done plenty of work with it.
Yes, so this is just gonna kind of cover the next steps for the village. And it kind of goes way into the future a little bit to 2037, but then I'll kind of bring it back to, like the next steps that we need to do. So, it's a little slow. So this is just a diagram that shows what we'll be talking about. So due in July, which we turned in, we're compliant with the state, is the inventory of the service line. The property boundary is what determines what's customer owned and system owned. And then the next step, which is due in 2027, is still updating those and getting all the ones that we weren't sure about, they're marked unknown, identified. But the next focus is the connector here, which connects to the water meter. And then typically the water meter in the village is inside the house, so you can kind of ignore that. But that's what we'll be talking about. So this is kind of the key dates, so the overall view. So again, we completed the initial inventory in July of 2025. Due in November is kind of the next big compliant date, and that will be the baseline inventory, focusing on the connectors, the service line replacement plan. The new lead action level and tap sampling procedures will take into effect that day, which is just something the Public Works Department needs to worry about. And then verify galvanized service lines, make sure they're galvanized because those will have to be replaced. Making progress on unknown service lines also. Due a year later in 2028 is sampling the Cedar Elementary School. January 30th, 2029 is the updated inventory. In 2030, it'll be replacing 30% of the lead, galvanized, and unknown service lines. So this is the equivalent of a 10% annual replacement rate. And then due in December of 2031, it'll be replacing the lead, galvanized, and unknown service lines to be at a 10% annual replacement rate, and then repeat that annually. So in 2037, then that will be when everything is replaced. If, I guess we'll cover that later. It has to be replaced by then. And then for 2034, identifying all unknown service lines or replaced by 2037, and then validating the service lines, which we'll talk about later. 2037, again, unknown service lines have to be identified, all lead and galvanized need to be replaced. And then if lead connectors are found, they'll have to be replaced. So that's kind of a lot, but now this is what the result of July 2025 was, the initial inventory. So what we want to focus on is what's highlighted in red. So these need to be replaced by 2037 if we don't verify the service line material is not lead or galvanized. An important note is that there has not been record of lead in the village at all, and we have not encountered any. So that's just important to note that our goal is just to identify the unknowns. It's not that we need to get lead out. So right now, throughout the year, it's just improving and updating the inventory. And then due July 1st is updating the inventory and making it available to the public. And then sending consumer notifications to those who are still unknown or have galvanized. And that is just annually, we'll have to do that. So this is the next big compliance date. I kind of briefly mentioned this before, but the baseline inventory is due, so is the service line replacement plan, which is a 9-step comprehensive plan, which Jacobs can assist, which I'll talk about a bit later, and help us do that. A list of schools and licensed childcare facilities that we serve, which as of right now is just Necedah schools. The new lead action level and tap sampling procedure will take place also on that day. And make progress on identifying those unknown service lines and verifying that galvanized service lines are actually galvanized. If a customer had replaced it, that's where we just want to take a look at it and make sure they're still galvanized because the customer may have already replaced it.
Does the facilities, that includes licensed daycares?
Yes.
Licensed pet, okay.
So would that include the Health Star building now?
According to the report we got back from the DNR that does not qualify, it's licensed childcare. So I guess we'll have to look into that and make sure, but
Because that is all state licensed.
Yeah, I would be surprised that the Head Start building isn't identified.
yeah. If that is the case, what we'll have to do is, we'll talk about it in a bit here, but, they would then take the second year. We have to test them, and so elementary schools would be tested in 2028, and then the Head Start building would be 2029. So that's just an adjustment we'll have to make. But yeah.
What's the process for identifying unknown lines?
Right now, what we've been doing is every time that there's a water meter that's taken out, we check inside the building and look at what's coming in from the street. The difficult part is going back and seeing what they had for records when they put the water main in, because basically the line from in the street to the curb stop that shuts off the water in your front yard, that one there, if it's not on a set of plans, which we found a bunch of plans, and she scanned in the information and sent it off to the consultant that was working with the DNR. We had some of them, but some of the older areas, but were not identified as what, and didn't have sets of plans on it. We have a drawing showing where water mains are, our main map, but we didn't have that data, so
You guys are digging them up? Is that what's
that's what they've done in some of them, but the only thing is by the time you dig them up, then you may as well replace them. So we're still going through and trying to identify if there's any other records.
Save a lot of labor.
But this is set up to, they think over several years and they think it's affordable, but it's a huge cost. If we have to start digging it up, that's a direct hit to our utility, where we're gonna have to raise rates to do it, unless they put a grant program together to do it. They have grant programs to replace lines if they are lead, but they didn't have
To investigate.
not to investigate. So we're working right now to work through that right now. We've got a good start. Like if you look at where we were and where we are now, it's day and night. And we had a lot of the stuff already compiled, because Emily had worked on it last fall when we discussed it at work. And she put it together, and then the consultant put it in the format that the DNR wanted, is what it came down to. We had a lot of the information, we sent off what we had already. And the other thing is, if you go back to many years ago when we hired Chris Voda, he had a sheet that they filled out on every install, and he took photos. So he was way ahead of the game on that. That helped us a great deal, because we go back to photos in the house. And then we continued with that. And now she identified the checklist that we're using right now, that we're gonna probably update it a little bit more, because there's some things that we could add to that would make our life even simpler. And I don't know if she's gonna cover that or not, but we've discussed that with our guys. And it wouldn't take any longer really to do that type of stuff when you're in the field. But really what it comes down to is they wanna get to the point where in Madison and Washington, they would be able to see that they could look at an inventory and see what the CETA has for water lines. That's where they wanna get to.
We won't go through all this. This is just the comprehensive plan and how much is involved, because we're going to talk about how Jacobs will help us kind of do that. Jacobs is a consultant who, through the DNR, can offer it for free and help us out with things like this. So this won't be something that has to be done by the employees necessarily. And then here, this is just kind of for Public Works to know, and it's just that the action level was lower from 15 to 10 micrograms per liter for lead. So that's just something for them to know. We usually don't encounter that. So, and then multiple exceedances, they made a change that now you have to provide filters for consumers if you exceed that level multiple times. There's some small water system compliance flexibilities that we can do, if we did ever encounter that, because we are so small, they can help us out. Like I previously mentioned, so due in November 2028 is just the elementary school or childcare lead sampling. You have to do one site per year. You have to do 20% of elementary schools and childcare facilities. So for us, we just have to do it the first year, and if the Head Start building is factored in, it'll be the second year. Secondary schools, so that's just on request. They just have to request it, we just have information about it, if they want to be tested.
Because our building is all one, in theory, the whole building would be tested, correct?
Yeah, I believe what they want is just for multiple taps to be tested, and so one on each side, and you're pretty much set to go.
Because the kids move throughout the entire building, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would assume that's what the action we would take for that. And then 2029, so that's the updated inventory, which is just hopefully a lot of the unknown, most of the unknowns are identified by then. And then a school and childcare report has to be turned into the state. 2030, so this is replacing 30% of lead, galvanized, and unknown service lines, which is a 10% annual replacement rate per year. So this, the 30%, this I guess is kind of important because if we get the unknowns identified by 2027, which might be difficult considering a lot of factors, but those get factored into having that 10%. So if we have them identified, we have to replace a lot less by then, if that makes sense. Which of course, if we dig them up, we realize they're not lead, then we don't have to replace them, but we do still have that cost of digging to see them. So it prevents a lot of the issues if we can get those identified.
But if you do have to dig them up, you're gonna like do the record and the photography and stuff.
You would
Yeah.
do the record, yeah. The only thing is when you dig up a water line as you dig, it's a pretty good chance, you gotta keep an eye on it, because you could snag it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, when you expose it, you've got water lines that might be 30, 40, 50 years old, but back in the day, the village did a good job, pretty much. The board members at that time required copper to be put in. That was what, copper lines were a common thing, so we were in a good shape, and our water system's newer, and that's why we don't have as many lead issues. But back, there was nothing but copper, and then later on it went to plastic, so.
And who has to perform that upgrade?
The upgrade right now, it looks like it's gonna get pushed under the utility. It looks like, right now, the DNR is going through some things, and she's probably gonna cover it down the road, where they still can rewrite rules that are going on, there's some public hearings coming up on it.
We would have to take care of up to the curb stop, right?
They may end up requiring us to do everything.
All the way to the house,
Yeah.
into the house.
Of course, they may. Right now, the way it looks right now, I would say that's where they're leaning towards. Our ordinance right now says from the water service into the house is the homeowner's responsibility. The curb stop and to the street is the village's if we do a repair. Like sewer is already from the sewer main to the house, the entire thing is the homeowner's, is the way our ordinance is written. So.
For 2032, we just have to say, have a letter that says we haven't added schools or child cares. And then the sample needs to be done by 2032, but it would be done by 2028 or by 2029 if Head Start is included. And then after that, it's on request only. So the school can request anytime to be tested and we will do it. And in 2034, so this is identifying all unknown service lines because they do need to be replaced by 2037, so you want that extra time. And then validating them. So the validation process is basically a validation pool that's of all non-lead service lines, with eliminating a few depending on certain factors in there. And you randomly select 20% of this pool, test them, and if they come back no lead, then it makes our inventory valid according to the DNR. So that's something that has to be done in 2034. 2037, so this is the replacement date. Identifying unknown service lines, replacing all lead and galvanized. And the only exception to this is if the property owner doesn't consent to us replacing the line, like the property side line, then it can just remain unknown or remain lead, like galvanized. We don't envision any lead coming through anyways, but we don't have to, we can't force that. They need to allow us on that. And then replacing any lead connectors if they're found. So essentially the ideal outcome is the village can prove in the inventory there's no lead, galvanized, or unknown service lines, and no known lead connectors, and no connectors of unknown material. So if this happens, our list gets cut down to just these 4 steps. This is an ideal outcome, and we aren't sure if things will go smoothly and as quickly as we would want, but that's just to give you a viewpoint of us not having to submit annual updates, just having to provide a written statement would be a huge difference. So consulting with Jacobs, so they provide technical assistance for us on behalf of the DNR, and this is for what's listed here, inventory updates, pretty much what we just went through they'll help us with. This is no cost, contracts, obligations, and then I just have the flyer here, which we won't go through, but it just shows the services, how many services they would provide to us. So if we want to go through that route, that would, I think, help us out. So our immediate next steps would be filling out the opt-in survey with Jacobs if we want to go that route. Identifying connection materials and locations, so that's through past project plans, visual inspections. Start identifying unknown service lines, so meter changeouts, these can account for a portion of our customer side, which we kind of touched on previously. And inspections of meters will remain on our customer side. And then wayside and street side, I'm covering on the next slide. But then verifying galvanized service lines are not switched out already, would also be the next step for us. And that's, again, just looking in your home at the meter itself. Notification of known or potential service lines containing lead and reporting that to the DNR by July, which is the annual process that I mentioned earlier. So I know we kind of covered this already, but preliminary records is a way to identify street side. On-site visual examination, which really only works for the meter itself. Otherwise, we have to do excavation. This is one of the most expensive ways to identify them, so we want to avoid that. There are some water analysis we can do, which we still need to look into with Public Works about how that could be possible to identify them. And then this is just kind of the timeline that Wisconsin DNR has out there. So this information is all based on the EPA, and it's subject to change. The official Wisconsin rule is expected in summer or fall 2026. But to be realistic and get it done when we need to, we kind of need to start thinking about it now. So that's why we put it together under the EPA. Pretty much what the state can change is shortening deadlines. So that's the only thing we have to worry about, but it doesn't seem like from their draft that they plan to do that. But they'll adopt it nearly the way the EPA has it, so. Yeah, does anyone have any specific questions?
Considering all the time you put into this, you put in a lot of time, so thank you for that. But,
Yeah.
time that none of us want to do, because it's not exciting. Do you recommend going with Jacobs? Is there any reason not to?
The only holdback is the fact that we work with MSA, and MSA is great, and we want to keep that relationship, of course. We use them to upload the stuff into their GIS system, and that's how we want it to be. And Jacobs is kind of a different consulting firm than that. So that's the only unfortunate thing, is that Jacobs gives it back to us, and then we have to put it into MSA.
Even though it's free, it turns into a little more work on the back end later.
Yeah, but I would say the huge benefit is that Jacobs will kind of walk us through making sure we're compliant and let us know when things are due. And that follow-up helps a lot, I think, especially because there's just so much that goes on in the village, and there's so many things to do, that having them reach out helps. But that's just my personal opinion.
It's valuable.
Yeah, makes sense.
So in having somebody who, as the EPA or DNR changes things, as things change at the state or federal level,
Yeah.
they would be a fast contact. They would be pushing out that information.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking 10 years down the line on some of these deadlines.
Yeah.
Things don't ever change.
The thing I look at on the whole thing is, we've got our mapping system right now. We no longer do a paper map with our water and sewer. We have it in a GIS system, a mapping system. And we've got different layers in there. We've got as-built plans and all kinds of things. This here could be put into that. Now, we just gotta work with MSA and find out if there's a way we can take Jacob's format and import it in rather than manually put it in. Because then the people in the field that do the work, the water department, and sewer department, when they go out and look at these things, they can enter that stuff into a handheld, a tablet, and that can be uploaded right into the GIS system, so everything could be current. Otherwise, what we could run into is we'd be maintaining two separate systems, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the other thing is MSA, if we went 100% with them, would be on our dime. If we go with Jacob, they cover a lot of the costs that DNR does, so it benefits us. It's just trying to get it linked, and there's probably gonna be a way down the road to look at. That's something that we push from our end. Because everything's going computerized and digital, so, I mean, our guys that go out in the field don't take a paper map out anymore. They take their phone or a tablet, and they locate the stuff for Diggers Hotline that way. There's no longer, if you work with computers, you really can't work with public works anymore. That's just a fact. Because every job needs that skill. And a lot of the stuff in our GIS system, we're gonna do a GIS upgrade that we've been discussing a little bit with MSA, and it's being forced a little bit on us, but that also will address water, our water system and our sewer system. And it's being driven, for the Windows upgrade 2 requirements go hand in hand. So basically, our guys that are coming in have to be able to use those tools. And right now, we've got them working with them right now. Kim does a lot of locates with using that. Jack's familiar with it. And then we occasionally have had some of the trainings done. MSA's come up one time, but I think you've done, probably 3 or 4 trainings with them on the GIS system. So, and right now, all our plans for water and sewer are in there. So as we get this information put in there, we're just building a bigger and bigger database. So that's where we want to go to.
Any questions? Thank you very much for the information.
Very
And
good
your
job.
time.
That was a lot of work.
Excellent job.
Well presented too, so.
Item 13, consider generator upgrade for the village town hall. You have information in your packet.
Basically what happened was, we have a 15 kilowatt generator outside here. That was purchased with funds from Juneau County Emergency Management. It was basically a grant, and that was done several years ago, almost 20 years ago. And the original price was $8,500. And at that time, the village, the town, and the fire department had a chance to upgrade it to a bigger generator, but we did not at that time. So we ended up having a smaller one. So every time there's an event here that we have to use that generator, we have to go through and just like Jim Strosa said, is You gotta isolate systems, you have five panels I gotta go to. I have to start manual start generator, I have to do a manual transfer switch, and then I have to go back and turn on breakers to turn electrical back on. And then some of the systems that it's not big enough for is like the bottles they get filled with air from the fire department, the cascade system, cannot run at the same time as everything else. So I mean, there's a need down the road, and that's one thing that I wanted to bring up here. Automatic transfer switch would be a huge deal. If, back in the day, I had 5 minutes to get here, and if it ended up not getting here in 5 minutes, our server would crash, and then we'd have to restart everything for computers. And then also, the fire department, overhead doors, all that kind of stuff are on electricity. So we need that generator up and running. So what I'm proposing is we try to work with the town and the CETA, because there's the shared building, and even discuss with the fire department to upgrade to either 60 kW or 80 kW. And the reason why I put those two in there is $67,509 is what a 60 kW cost, 80 kW is $70,743. So you're looking at roughly $3,000 difference for an upgrade, $3,200. So you may as well, if you look at it. But I think that's where we have to go. The other thing to keep in mind is this building serves as the emergency management center. So when the DNR comes in, anybody from the state comes in, they use this facility. If we go with a bigger generator, we get some electrical outlets that would be available for outside even. So if we had groups that needed tents or set up their own vehicles outside to connect in for those events. The other thing this serves as is the warming center when we have events. Also, the schools also played a role in that now, being a warming center. So I think long-term, this way of manually doing it is not the best way. And over the years, I've only had a couple times where people have attempted to do it and they did it wrong. And then I got down here in time enough to get it going. But it's not like a seamless thing. It takes me probably 12 to 15 minutes from start to finish to start the generator.
But
So this-
there are times throughout the town also,
Right, and then my guys, I've trained them on there too, but the only thing is the panels, we label all the breakers and then what we have to turn off. Good example right now, you can't run air conditioning in here when you end up running the generator because it draws too much. So if you had an event in the summer where a tornado would come through or something, or there was a flooding event and you had to do backup power, the people in the operations center could not have that. The heat system you can probably run.
I think it's a no-brainer in this day and age, because you get 40 minutes according to him from UPS's on computer equipment, that's it. Probably nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a no-brainer to an automatic, and there's no guarantee you guys can get here in time and you need it kicked in. Do we know how much 80 makes sense, but do we know how much that would power? Would it power everything, or you still need that?
60 would power everything as we are right now, we believe.
So then,
But
that would be a good long-term plan.
That's
So
what
the
we're
minimal
thinking.
difference in price.
And then the other thing,
Just look at the percentage, and going up from 60 to 80 is only $3,000.
Yeah.
I think
That's a no-brainer also.
Now,
No,
As long as you're not, yeah, good.
also, what would be the additional cost for the natural gas connection?
I have not got the price. I did talk to BTU because they did our heating system here and the meters are in the back. We have a meter out in the back that we could connect back up into the system, and do that. The other thing too is depending on how this would work, we could probably end up even powering the building next door because we're close enough by, and that's our public workshop. So there might be some options if we go with a bigger one. Not saying we'd have to use it, but it gives some additional, if you needed it.
What does the maintenance look like over the last 20 years with the one you have?
It has not been bad. Mostly what we spent on was the battery going bad. And then we did do some block heaters in there to heat it.
Did you exercise it monthly or?
We do it twice a year, typically spring and fall. And normally I bring in, right now Gray's Electric is who we bought it or got it from. So they come in and do the maintenance, and I've had our guys trained on it, and we've kept trying to keep also the town crew trained on it too. The only thing there is we're running 2 guys or 3 guys, and they're plowing, and if they needed it, it's harder to pull them away. Plus I'm gonna set up another training this fall. But it does, I mean, I can make it work, sort of, but it's not like the perfect solution.
And then we have Generac now currently.
We have, the company right now we have out here is Generac, yep.
Okay.
Um,
And then with going to if we went to a newer Generac at 80 kilowatts, is there any connection changes, any other
This is,
infrastructure changes that are needed that
This-
have extra costs?
this price all included electrical on the building too, because the transfer system would be automatic. And the other thing is this building was built in the 80s and there's different electrical codes at that time. And when they did these upgrades, they would have to meet those upgrade requirements, which even like the exit lighting have to be on all the time.
So this includes that.
Yeah, that was a
So
whole
it's more
package.
than just the generator.
Yeah, it's doing the whole package. So that's what I asked them to put together. I had them come up and look at what we had.
Especially after what James said, you
Yeah.
know, with all the things that within our servers.
Well, all the life-saving things that we're responsible for, I think it's a no-brainer.
And we're in some emergency cover, all of it.
How long you thinking that we gotta plan this out before looking?
Well,
for-
I think the next step is to get the town, Nacita on board because it's over half the building's theirs. You know, our village portion goes down the center here and it's on this side and they end up having that meeting room. They own the fire department, they also own the office area. So I think and I've already talked to Scott, he was looking at it, they're trying to work on budget right now. But I think this is something that would be better to do sooner than later if you can get agreement back and forth on how we fund it. I've checked into some grants that are available to see if there's anything out there. And so far I've found nothing that will pay for a generator. Back in the day, they gave the money and that, you know, enough to at least get something here. And right back then, they were just happy to have a little backup power.
Yeah.
But now it's getting to the point where,
Different day and age now.
yeah, and, you know, I think that to get somebody to be able to come in here and do it, I mean, at one time they had a situation with the fire department, they couldn't open their doors, so they do the manual releases. But all their trucks have plugins on them that are supposed to release automatically when they drive out, they don't have to physically unplug them. Well, that's all electrical, so if someone comes in there that's used to driving out the door and it's still connected, I mean, that's all supposed to be automatic, so. And then, you know, they upgraded their doors too, because they're getting to the point where they're tied to electrical and their scan cards wouldn't work because everything was dead. So now they've got a battery backup on theirs. So they found workarounds, but I think the whole thing is, I want to bring this up when Jim was presenting, because ultimately when things crash on that system and then I have to get it started and Jim's not here, he can't remotely come in and help me on it. I can call him on the phone and tell him what I see, and then I gotta reboot everything. And then he tells me, go behind the server, find this wire and do this, and so
It's a little bit more than not plugging in your refrigerator, you know?
Is there any resale value on our one or the scrap material?
I think somebody would reuse it, but the value of that is probably at 20+ years old, is not gonna be something that's gonna make a
Not
whole lot.
offset enough?
No. And then the other thing is that was given to this building, so it's jointly owned. So get through how we handle it.
Yeah.
Are you going to be pursuing the gas connection? And the only reason I ask is, I know that when the hurricane hit North Carolina, my father has a Generac at his house. And having that natural gas connection, he had power right away and he had power the whole time.
Well, we have gas available here. I did ask for a pricing, and like I said, I went back to BTU, and he has not gotten me back with it. That's why they gave us everything but that for tonight's meeting, so I'll have that number.
But you are looking to include that in
Yeah.
the total package?
It would be as soon as I get
Yeah.
that number. And the meters come in the back here, and then lines go over the top, and they drop down with the generators on that side, so if it's a matter of just increasing pipe size, probably, or maybe dedicating one for it. But I did talk to Corey, does all the bidding and stuff, and he was gonna do that.
I think it's a dedicated line. I think that's what they had to do.
But at least we've done our homework on it to this point. I just wanted to bring it here and look at having at least an agreement that we need to go forward, and then we probably should have a joint meeting at some point with the town and say, let's work through this and figure out how we finance it.
Right, and it also, like stated in here, the Juneau County Emergency Director was looking, he thought it was a good idea to increase the size of it quite some time ago, it looks like.
He did look at that time and he recommended, but at that point in time, 3 entities were discussing it back and forth and there was money involved and I think everybody was operating at tight budgets and they just didn't have the funds to put it forward at that time. And they were, they were looking at 40 kW at that time, which probably been okay, but they upgraded since then and put the Cascade system in, the newer one, which draws more electricity. So it'd be nice to be a little bit oversized. And for 3,000, if we go for $3,000 difference in price, it'd be better to be bigger. And then everything would automatically exercise for us. We'd have maintenance agreements to come out and work on it. And this one here, this building is maintained by, right now we have Jeff and Gray Electric come up and do it. The rest of our generators are Cummings units. We have somebody come in, but a lot of times they get dispatched out of Green Bay, De Pere, Milwaukee. And generally, if I call Gray Electric, I have someone here probably within an hour. That's how it is. So.
Okay, so you'll keep us up to date on the
Yep.
progress with that. Thank you. Item 14, board action, hiring Skylar Torrey.
We interviewed him, we offered, and he accepted, so he'll be starting this week. I just wanted to have something in there.
Thank you.
So if you wanted, should we do a motion?
Motion to approve the, okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the hiring of Skylar Torrey for Public Works.
I make a motion that we approve Skylar Torrey for Public Works.
We have a motion by Mary Beth Stivers to approve the hiring of Skylar Torrey. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
The motion is seconded. The motion is to approve the hiring of Skylar Torrey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Good to know we've got a full department again. Excuse me. Item 15, consider approval of operator's license, a new license for Mary Ann Trapp at the Veterans Memorial Hall. Do we have a report?
The police said there was no issue with approving it.
Okay. So then we'll entertain a motion to approve the new license report, new operator's license for Mary Ann Trapp at the Veterans Memorial Hall.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Don Jackson to approve the license, operator license for Mary Ann Trapp, Veterans Hall. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Seconded by Mary Beth Stivers. The motion is to approve the operator's license for Mary Ann Trapp, Veterans Memorial Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Take care of that. Item 16. Administrator's report.
The DOT project right now, they're working on the roundabout there. One thing they're looking at is probably some sidewalk out there. He came in and discussed it with me. And that'd be something that would be probably both town and village areas. Using it also touch base with Scott, the town chairman, to discuss that. That's typically how they do it. He said if it doesn't get put in now down the road, you'll probably want to put it in, then who's gonna pay for it, or it may never get put in. And right now, there's no sidewalk connecting out from the village that way, but we do have some sidewalk before the bridge here in town goes across the bridge. So it makes sense if we can get it included, so we're looking at that right now. The other thing that they're looking at is they've got it open going through. When they start the paving from the roundabout to the bridge, they plan on doing one side at a time. And go so many feet, pave it, have one lane go through, and then do the other side, pave it, and then keep going and going back and forth. So there'll be always traffic being able to come through, which is good news. And they did make it before school started, barely, but it made it. So there was a lot of happy people, but that's where it's at right now. The village portion of work that's been done on it is all completed as far as our storm sewer that we had put in, the sanitary sewer line. We did actually 2 of them, and that's all went as planned. So we've done our part. So there's nothing really more. That leads us into 22nd Street. That's the road that goes down to the shrine. That's also gonna be paved this year. We did that bid and opened that last month. And they're gonna do that with the same asphalt quality as what they're doing the highway with. So, and they're gonna fit that in. The only thing is, I wanna make sure that when we get that done is it doesn't become the detour of the highway projects. I said, if they can plan it, because we don't want to beat up right away, which might delay it a little bit, but the same contractor's doing it to cut the bid for the highway. Sidewalk project at the library, that was put in, like, reported in the first meeting. Installation of book lockers, we're gonna put up there. And then we had the petition for writ of mandamus. The petition was denied at court. And so that's where that one's at. But that's pretty much everything that I have for a report tonight.
If you want to see those book lockers, they are right now in the vestibule at the library.
Very nice.
And
Nice
the
addition.
purpose of that is if people want to come in, like call Autumn and say, can check out these books, and then we put them in the locker out there. They would have a combination that you'd get them, so they could pick up their materials when the library isn't open.
It's gonna be a nice addition.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's kind of like what they were doing during COVID, but just to increase accessibility. Okay, item 17. Consider approval of committee and board appointments. We did do this previously, but with the change in the number of people on the board, a concern was raised about having 3 people on a committee because that would constitute a quorum. And if the 3 people were at a meeting and they all agreed on something, it would be a quorum meeting outside a regular board meeting. So basically, what I've done is gone back and I identified one of the 3 people on each committee that will be an alternate, so that if for some reason somebody has to step back from the board or request to step back from the committee, we would still have a full committee. And that updated list, then we will have that for the next board meeting. So we just wanted to avoid the possibility of having a quorum at committee meetings. So, future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items? If you think of anything, please be sure. Oh, I do have one. The footbridge needs to, have Jack check that out and report back to the board. I've had a few people contact me about, they're concerned about that it's not safe. There seems to be some holes. I looked at it, but I'm not an engineer or a builder, so I'm not the person to make those judgments.
Are you talking on walking that by school?
Yes. Yes. Anything else?
I have something.
I'm sorry, but we don't do public comment.
Whose village is this?
We are, our lawyers are currently looking at and our public comment policy. And when they have gotten back to us, we will relook at that.
Really? I've never heard of such a thing. And another thing is, the only one I heard talk here is Roger. I mean, that's the only voice I could
Okay.
hear.
We need a motion to go into closed session. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Make a motion that we go
I
in
really
closed
have
session.
somebody invited me
We
here.
have a motion by Mary Beth Stivers to go to closed session. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
Motion to go into closed session, seconded by Don Jackson.
No, I can't.
Roll call vote.
Stivers.
Yes.
Jackson. Taylor. Murphy. Glassman.
Yes. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, everyone.
How many people?